close to the end here, folks. We have some ideas, and it's only one slide, about how to supplement what the board is saying. And basically, we've got recommendations for 2012, 2013, and some recommendations for a long-term solution. We're thinking that the board should implement a across-the-board salary freeze for everybody in the district. That would result in at least $2 million worth of savings. We think that the employees should pick up about, at least starting the first year, $2.5 million worth of healthcare costs. This is kind of an interesting one a lot of people don't know about. We spend $1.7 million, approaching $1.8 million on substitute teachers.
Because of all the sick days, right?
What I'm telling you is what we spend. And I did the math on it. If you look at what we pay substitutes, that equates to, depending on the number of classroom teachers or whether it's all teachers, somewhere between 15 and 19 days per teacher per year. It's about $125 a day for a substitute teacher. Basically, all I did is divide that into 1.7 million to see what that comes out to. And actually, I've got some other information from the board. If you want to stick with me after, I can give you a little bit more detail on it. But I suggested to the board that they take a strong look at this. And I've got agreement from it. I talked to Superintendent Thompson, and he said, you know, we've got to take a look at that. I go, no S. Yes, sir.
Just very quickly, that substitute teacher expense is a combination of factors caused, for example, if a teacher is sick, okay, but it's also caused by when a teacher has to attend a student hearing, an IEP session, etc.
It's more than
and
sickness.
things like that, or they pull out to the admin offices for something. It's not. I don't think it's necessarily a huge. Well, the teacher just taking a sick leave to say.
But notwithstanding that, it's still
it's a big expense.
15.
But it's
If you compare that to private industry, it's just huge.
Private industry doesn't have 30 kids sitting in a room.
I
They have to be
understand.
cared for.
They have to be. I don't disagree with that. You're absolutely right. I'm just saying it's a huge expense, and it just made me scratch my head that why is that going on? Should we scrutinize it? There's nothing, I think, in this budget that should be beyond the purview of really strict scrutiny. And just, let's take a look at it. If we can make some savings, we ought to do it. We think we should conduct an audit of the home office right across the road here, right across the parking lot. Take a look. We might have to say, hey, folks, we're going to have to take a day off now and then without pay, just like the rest of us done over the years. I know I had to do it in the last 2 years that I worked. Boss came to me and said, looks like you're going to take next week off, and looks like we're going to take something out of your paycheck. There it goes. And we're suggesting that possibly a decrease in the payments we make to the teacher retirement system on behalf of the administrators. The administrators, with the exception of assistant principals, have their teacher retirement funds paid for by the district. When I say by the district, that's us, the taxpayers. Now, real quickly, I'm going to go through a couple of long-term things here. And one of my colleagues said, you know, some of these things are pretty contentious as you put them up there. Yes, they're going to be contentious, but I think they're worth discussion. Doesn't mean we have to do them, but I think they're one of the avenues that we need to consider looking long-term. How many people here are familiar with the early retirement option for teachers in the district? Okay. As Mark had alluded to a few years back, the last 3 years a teacher was employed, they could get, once they applied for it, a 20-year bump.
20%.
20%. Thank you. 20% bump for 3 years. I looked at some data, looked at one teacher who retired in about 2005, 2006. They went from $75,000 per year to about $120,000 per year over the last 3 years of their employment. Not only did we pay that differential, it's also right that we're paying it as taxpayers to support the retirement. Now, the only question I would ask, and this is I'm getting a little bit in maybe some people's face here, is how does that affect education of the children? Ask yourself that. How does paying a person at the end of their career huge sums of money have a positive outcome on the education of the children in this district? That's my personal feeling. So there
The
is.
20% bump is strictly done to increase the pension payments that are made by the state. And then what they're talking about doing now is maybe pushing those pension obligations back to the local school districts in the future.
The 20% they actually got in
No.
salary
No,
increase.
I know.
Plus it jumps to, they get
The whole purpose
you
of
can't
doing
get
the 20%
75%.
bump is for increasing the pension payments.
Well, I take the salary increase along with it. It's
Yeah.
pretty hefty. I mean, how many people here have had 20% salary increases in their career, exclusive of promotions? Okay? We think that all future compensation should be tied to the CPI. That at or below CPI, because our revenue is capped, local revenue is capped by CPI. We can't levy, the district cannot levy any more than CPI. So if the CPI is 0%, like it was a couple of years ago, close to 1%, no more tax money. If it goes up by 2.5%, that's all of the local, that's all they can raise the taxes.
That was negotiated, right, Joe?
I'm sorry?
That 20%.
Yes, that was in the contract.
You mean 3 board members went to the negotiating table and approved that?
Yep. By the way, I missed something on this. Yes, I'm sorry.
No, the whole board.
The whole board, no, well, when she said 3, there's a I'm sorry, thank you. There's a negotiating committee that sits across the table, then, which is 2 or 3 of the board members.
Subset.
They negotiate because they don't have all 7 board members in there. Then they go back to the boardroom and said, okay, guys, what do we want to do as a board? Here's the things that we talked about. The board says, no. You negotiators go back and take, here's our counter offer. Then the 3 march back in there and they take the counter offer.
But they said yes to that.
So they said yes to this. I missed something. Let me point out on this. The last 2 years, right now, the district is paying $500,000 per year in salaries to teachers who are on this RIOP program. In other words, they're getting bumps in salaries. They identify this $500,000 within their budget as over and above what they would have normally gotten without entering into this program. And that's the equivalent of about 8 to 9 teachers, because they typically, for planning purposes, use about $55,000 a year per teacher. That's going on as we speak. And by the way, the 20% is no longer, as Mark pointed out, no longer. The current program is up to 4 years at 6% a year.
Also,
Jane?
that 20%, all those numbers are from previous boards.
That is not the current board. Yes,
Existing
thank you.
board had nothing to do with that process.
That's what I'm
Okay. We think these two kind of go together. You saw that salary schedule of Jen, jeez. Anybody over here? So we think there should be a reduction. We've looked at along with some other people, looked at other districts' schedules, and they're far less complex than ours. Also, this is probably really contentious. Re-examine compensation for advanced degrees. Read a lot of literature. I cannot find anything, not only me, but a number of other people cannot find any literature that indicates having an advanced degree has a positive outcome on education of K through 8 students.
I also heard that the degree doesn't even have to be anything with teaching.
Yeah, that's not really true. They do scrutinize to some degree. You look at, I'm not going to comment on that because I'm not as familiar in that area. I know I've read a number of the studies, and I've looked for studies on the other side of that issue. I think this is one of these issues that needs to be on the table, needs to be discussed dispassionately if you can. If you're getting paid because of this, it's going to be hard to be dispassionate. I recognize that.
It's the only place where you get extra pay for hours taken, not achieving an advanced degree, just hours taken.
Yeah, you remember that first lane that Jim went into? If you get 16 extra hours, you get $3,000 a year more. Okay? Now, is 16 hours of additional education, again, I just asked you to intellectualize this, is that going to make you a better teacher? Let me ask this one other philosophical question. Let's accept for a moment that a master's degree does enable you, or makes you a better teacher. You're able to do better. What about you, Gordon, that has a child in a class that has a teacher with a bachelor's degree, and Jen, your child's in a class with a teacher that has a master's degree. Is that fair? Is there a fairness issue there? If in fact, we agree that a master's degree makes you a better teacher, should everybody have a master's degree? If your child is in a class without a teacher with a master's, are they being short-sighted?
I think it's been a while since